Hello and welcome to another Upwork Expert Talk. So today we have a very, very special expert talk with a very, very special guest, Dr. Nicolaou Dimitriadis. And Nico, thank you so much for coming and taking your time to come here and present something completely different from us. And on the other hand, so important, I think, really for everybody.
Thank you so much for having me.
So for you who maybe are not familiar with Dr. Dimitriadis, he's an award-winning communications professional, an educator, and a consultant, also one of the TEDx speakers. And he's the head of consulting services at Optimal HR Group in Athens, offering cutting-edge neuromarketing and neuro HR research and consulting. So he's also the chairman of the People Committee at the World Innovation and Change Management Institute in Geneva. He's a teacher, he's a professor, he's teaching MBAs at different universities across the world. And he's also a visiting professor at the School of Economics and Business at the University of Ljubljana. And he's also a book author, right? So he will let you know about the books he wrote, and I believe it will be interesting for us. And he's a specialist in science, in neuromarketing and neuroscience. And today we will talk about a very, very special topic, a science of persuasion. So actually how our brain works, right? And we're dealing with, we're doing online work. So actually what we're doing, we're dealing with clients who we cannot see. So it's even more different for us because we really have to know how to persuade them and how to convince them to hire us and work with us, and how actually our work works. And so today the webinar aims to help us break misunderstanding and myths concerning our persuasion and the brain, and explore how communication really works within our brain. And so actually what we are always talking about is the importance of relationship building for long-lasting influence. So the goal is how to convince people more. And for you probably all know me, and my name is Tamara Gavric, and I'm an Upwork brand ambassador. So I'm trying to motivate all freelancers and also clients in our region, and actually to explain how actually freelancing works and how to deal with clients and how to actually do an online work. And this is a very, very special expert talk. Today, I'm very, very happy to have you here, and I'm so proud that we have Nikos here living in Belgrade. So this is a special time for us, and I will leave you to Nikos. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tamara. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here with you. I know that this is a wonderful network with wonderful people and professionals, so I hope you will enjoy this session that we'll spend together. So it's Tuesday, correct? Yes. Sometimes I don't know what day we are in, but it is definitely Tuesday, and it's evening. So I want you to be as relaxed as possible. Okay, we cannot see you, so you can be in any type of clothing or non-clothing that you prefer. You can have a drink with you. You can eat. Just relax. Just try to open up. To listen, and of course also to engage with what I'm going to say. We're going to collect questions, right? If I'm not right, we're going to collect questions, and I will be very happy to answer to any of the questions or to discuss any ideas or comments that you might have. Okay, so I prepared some actually slides for you today, which we will go through, and I think we will see them just in a second on the screen. But before we go through the slides, I have to make a confession, and the confession is that I'm actually addicted to the human brain. Okay, so for more than 15 years now, a little bit more, I have been very passionate in studying the human brain. I came to the study of the human brain from marketing, business, and brand strategy. My bachelor studies, my MBA, my PhD were heavily on strategy and marketing and brand psychology, a lot of psychology. And around 2005, I was extremely dissatisfied with the way that both as an academic and a consultant and a practitioner, I was actually approaching the challenges of my clients and of the future marketeers, which were my students. So this deep dissatisfaction about the answers we were providing with the models we had led me to search for new answers. And the new answers came in the form of neuroscience. So for me, neuroscience, and especially applied neuroscience, which means applying the insights and the technologies and the methods of neuroscience to socioeconomic fields like business, like education, like politics, obviously, like economics. Okay, so applying these insights, principles, methods, and technologies can provide us with a great set of answers to questions that trouble the humankind for thousands of years. And if you think that this is too much to start this seminar on persuasion with, let me just share with you something that I actually posted yesterday. Now, how would you answer to the following question? Are you running because you are afraid, or are you afraid because you are running? So what comes first, the knowledge or the movement? You need to be aware of something that is happening in order consciously to experience your feelings, your thoughts, and then all of these insights to lead to your reaction, your movement. It feels like this every day, right? I mean, your personal daily experience says that yes, I'm aware of many things, I'm aware of my thoughts, I'm aware of my feelings, and all these contribute to my movement, my decision making, and my actions. It looks like that. But what if I tell you that for many years, more than 100 years now, by the father of modern psychology, a guy called William James, and what the most contemporary insights from neuroscience tell us is the opposite. Is you are afraid because you're running. You're not running because you're afraid. And I know that many of you, very naturally, you will rebel against what I'm saying. I say, but Nikos, apart from some unfortunate situations where I go into the supermarket and I, through impulse, through my irrational, unconscious mind, I do something that I was not planning, maybe it was not even good that I chose, but I was, in the heat of the moment. Now, apart from this huge heat of the moment, situations where I allow my unconscious and my impulse to govern my decisions, most of other things in life, actually, I think about it, analyze it, and I move. So your experience is against science, because actually, the brain, as you will see from of the material that I prepared for you, the brain works so fast and with such huge amounts of information that first, and much before you come into the game as a conscious mind, as awareness, much before awareness comes in, the brain already took the information from the outside world, already probably identified a wolf or a bear that is about to attack me, already took the decision to run, to escape, already started creating the physiological changes, the somatic markers, as Antonio Damasio will say, one of the star neuroscientists. So already the brain noticed, already the brain started pumping adrenaline into my body. Adrenaline starts making my pulse go up, my heart rate, the heart is pumping like crazy. My muscles start getting, tough, tight in order to run. My vision becomes very, very, laser focused. All this has already started before I even realize that I've heard something there or there's something moving there. This comes later. So now you're afraid because you are running. Because maybe, most probably, you notice these changes. And the conclusion is that since I see these somatic changes, although this comes very fast and not fully consciously, okay? since my heart is pumping so fast, since I started sweating, since my laser focused eyes are these are even my body starts leaning toward there. Well, probably it's because something is happening and I'm about to get eaten, so let me run to escape. Thus, I need to be afraid. I need to be afraid because already my body started running. Okay. So as I said, this looks so counterintuitive. It goes so much against of our lived experience every day. It goes so much against how we have been taught to our parents, our schools, universities, institutions, and other socioeconomic actors that life is about awareness, life is about consciousness, life is about decision making that you do as the controller of everything you are about. And neuroscience, of course, we cannot put a label in all the neuroscience in the world. Neuroscience is a science, and as every science, people fight, okay, which is good. If they all agree with something, something is wrong. In science, if everybody agrees with something, you should be worried. So, of course, there's a lot of fight, but one of the most robust findings we have is that the brain is the decision maker. The brain is the decision maker, and it's good that the brain is the decision maker because, as you will see, it has much more capacity to understand, to analyze, to perceive, to initiate actions than us. If nature intended for our conscious mind to be the one that takes the decisions for us to survive as a species, let me tell you now, we would not be here as a species. We would be already dead. Okay, so it's great that our unconscious is taking all these decisions because, as I will show you, the capacity, the bandwidth of our conscious mind for analytics is really, really very small, and evolution cannot be based on that. Now, these are the first crazy things you will hear today. Have many more. So let's start getting. If you always want to challenge your friends, over a beer or a wine, or when you see them discussing things you don't like, just throw this question: are you running because you're afraid? I'm saying, of course, but actually you are afraid because you are running. Great decision started, by the way, in any bar and club around or beach bar, since we're approaching the summer. So many of the things that you will see today. Let me just see, okay, here. Many of the things that I will show you today come from the books that I have written or I have co-authored. So I wrote 2.5 books, and I'm joking because my first book, Neuroscience for Leaders, is now in its second edition, it's the yellow one. And it's me and my co-author, we are very happy because it was very well received around the world. It is already translated in Chinese, 2 versions of Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, Portuguese, finally Greek this year, and many more languages are coming up. So it was really, and the first edition was published in 2016, and immediately they asked us after 2 years to upgrade it in a second edition. So this shows that really made an impact around the world. And my second book, Advanced Marketing Management, is actually a book that uses a lot of science, neuroscience, behavioral sciences, biology even, data science, to create this new set of skills and tools that every leader needs to create a customer-centric company. So it says marketing, but it's not only for marketers. It's for everybody that wants to create a really customer-centric company. Okay, and so many of the things you will see are mentioned there, but not only there. I'm lucky enough to have. Me and my teams, we have tested up to now 6,000, I think now it's closer to 6,500 brains around the world from more than 25 countries. So what we do, I run Applied Neuroscience Lab, so we have all these crazy devices, electroencephalogram, Frankenstein, electrodes come out, galvanic skin response, or the light detector, as we can call it, eye tracking, emotional face analysis, emotional voice analysis, all this. And we travel all around the world to help brands, many of the brands, to take decisions on consumer insights, so neuromarketing, or if you think that this is crazy, wait until some other time. We have a presentation on neuro HR. So how to use the same devices, but not in brains outside the company, but brains inside the company. Who is the brains inside the company? We have the people, meet the people, the employees. So, and I will show you there how you can be just in front of the laptop for 5 minutes. You sit in front of the laptop, 5 minutes with an electroencephalogram and some other devices. 5 minutes, you look at the screen, we ask you to do a couple of things, and we can tell you how your brain is calibrated for empathy, for mindset, for resilience, for creative problem solving. But no questionnaire, no discussion, no deep interviews, no all this blah, 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 which actually I'm quite against about. So yeah, it's coming. Slowly but steadily, we have measured more than 900 managers' brain, actually most of them top leaders around the world, to see not what we call with old psychology personality. Actually, neuroscience, many neuroscientists and me personally, we're not so fond of the term personality. Okay, we talk more about cognitive styles. So it's actually strategies that your brain has found. Some of them are hardwired from evolution, some of them are trial and error, and the brain learns that some strategies are good, some are bad. So it strengthens some neural networks, it weakens some others, and we can actually measure this kind of brain strategies, okay, which I think they're much more accurate and much more precise than what we call traditional personality. So not a big personality fan here. Okay, so things you will see here also come from my research from all around the world. And I want to start with the thesis of the talk. And the thesis of the talk is that persuasion, influence, my ability to communicate with you in order to take you with me or to nudge a behavior or to showcase a direction of where our movement, our collective movement will be. By the way, this is what leadership is about. Leadership is about collective movement and how the leader takes the tribe towards a specific, this is evolutionary leadership, how a leader takes the team towards a territory to reach a goal. So, the brain deals with real life. So movement for the brain is something fantastic, actually very important than just a thought. So the thesis is that persuasion, influence, is not about clever words or tricks and tips that I can share with you. The magic 3 sentences or 3 keywords that when you say this, everybody will melt at your will and follow what you do. This is an outdated, I would say, a dangerous approach to persuasion. It comes from the 70s and 80s sales mentality of how to sell anything to anybody. And it's not by accident that I say this. There was a book. There was a very popular book in sales back in the 80s and beginning of the 90s, how to sell anything to anybody. Like if you sell, ice cubes to Eskimos, then you are the best salesperson. I'd say that you are the worst salesperson that exists, and I would never hire you. If you're going to sell ice cubes to Eskimos, you should never be trusted. So what the persuasion is all about? We have to separate. We have to go away from this transactional focus on persuasion, because if you see everything in your life, and if you're professional as one transaction, then me trying to sell ice cubes to Eskimos makes sense, because I will make money and I will disappear. But if I have to go there and sell something to them again and again and again, and if the strength of my brand is actually what we call in marketing brand equity, which is a financial asset, it's in the book, brand equity. And brand equity is measured based on loyalty. Means not what I sell you today, but how willing you are to buy from me tomorrow. So in order to do this, I must be very sure that what I sell to you, what I come here to offer you, is beneficial to you. So it's not a transactional approach, it's a relational approach. And this is the first thing we need to clarify. Persuasion is a relational activity. It's not a transactional one. If you go to any seminar, you buy any book, you watch any of how once you can trick somebody to buy from you because you are the clever, intelligent salesperson, presenter, leader, and the other is the stupid follower, buyer that you can very easily manipulate, that's not the seminar for you. Okay, very clear. Because I said this is outdated and it is dangerous nowadays because people can just go on social media and reveal how manipulated you are and you end your career because your brand is over. Okay, so we have to have a long-term view, and this actually comes also from marketing evolution of thinking because in I think it was 1995 that the first movement in Europe appeared for relational marketing. And you know, this is the only, not only, but one of the very few ideas in marketing which originated in Europe, because usually most of the ideas in marketing originate from the US. But one originated in Europe, and actually the Americans didn't like it. The Americans were heavily transactional oriented. And a couple of top scholars in Europe developed this idea of relational marketing, like you have to see long-termly, and if you see it long-termly, you might even lose from a transaction. You see where I'm going? You might even lose from a transaction because this is your investment for your next transaction. But if you don't follow this approach, and if you are fully transactional, you have to win in every transaction. But if you have the relational marketing approach, you see more long-term, and you might invest in the relationship, okay? And you might invest in developing a lifelong relationship with a client. This is where life cycle analytics came into play, etc. And it was a European idea. As I said, Americans were very late. They started embracing it in 2001, 2002. They started changing the book to embrace this relational approach. In the beginning, they were saying, what is this crazy Europeans talk about? You know, are we selling or are we not selling? So this relational marketing idea actually follows very well this relational orientation of persuasion. I'm not here to persuade anybody to do something I want. That's not persuasion. I'm here to find opportunities to collaborate for win-win situations and a long-term beneficial life for both of us. That's what persuasion is all about. And if persuasion is all about this, then I need to understand, and now a connection to the initial discussion, how your brain works, how the brain takes decisions, what the brain notices, how the brain develops trust, what does it mean in relation and bonding from the brain perspective, in order for me, as somebody that wants to build this relationship, to help your brain, and this is why we sometimes don't call it neuro, we call it brain friendly. So our goal is to develop brain friendly approach to connect and create this relationship with your brain in the deepest and most beneficial way. And again, this hides another important assumption. If I follow this outdated transactional approach of manipulation, that if I sell you something once I win, if I follow that, I actually believe, you know, explicitly or implicitly, that I can fool your brain. And your brain is easy to manipulate. If my intelligence is higher than yours, I can do the magic trick, the illusionary thing, and you buy, and then bye-bye. You know, you buy and bye-bye. It's good. That's good for a post. You buy and then bye-bye, and then we see, you know, what will happen. And this is why actually we call them con artists. Actually, con artists comes from confidence. So they build confidence, but certainly because obviously they conned you, they manipulated you, they ran away, then you realize that you have been conned. You know, you showed confidence where you shouldn't because they were more intelligent and you were more stupid. That's the dangerous idea. The relational approach actually has a completely different opinion about brains. And it says that the brains are by default intelligent. They know what they want. They work hard for what they want. They analyze very hard the situation to get what they want. They have fantastic built-in factory-ready processes from thousands of years of evolution. It's also adaptive. It learns. It makes mistakes. Yes, you will be conned once, but next time you will be more careful, and that's fantastic. This is how we progress and we grow as people, as societies, as species. It's normal. That's amazing. So what I'm going to present you takes the opinion that there is no mind and body, thought and feeling, intelligence and animalistic, manipulative habits. Actually, your intelligence lies with your unconscious, not with your consciousness. An illusion, as it's an illusion that you are running because you are afraid, it's also the illusion that you have a very intelligent consciousness and a very stupid unconsciousness. This is very outdated. Neuroscience now, and again, most neuroscience, not that. Neuroscience calls it the adaptive unconscious or the intelligence of the adaptive unconscious because it, as we mentioned, it grants it so much data in such fantastic ways that it provides all the answers even before we think we want an answer. So these Freudian ideas of a subconscious, which is the dark place where you put unrealized, non-realized urges, and then it comes to hunt you through neurosis, and you need a couch to lie down. It's over, also over. This Freud was wrong. He was right in other ways, and we really pay tribute to Freud because he recognized the importance of the unconscious. But unfortunately, Freudian thought gave a very dark, very negative view of the unconscious. And this is why we don't call it subconscious. You will notice I'm not calling it subconscious because subconscious is Freudian. It comes from sub, and sub means below, underneath, lesser. So we don't use this terminology. We know that unconscious is running the show, and great that it's running the show. Okay, so ready? I will go now faster, okay, to cover some material. So how does it work? It works like this. How does it work? So our goal is to build this deep bonding, connection, trust with the unconscious brain of our audience in order to prove to the unconscious that we are worthy of their trust and thus to accept our offer. And the more we deliver on the promise, and the more their brain, their unconscious, understands that we are trustworthy, the more this bonding is strengthened, and the more a wonderful life that we walk hand by hand towards the sunset, it's being built. The more their brain will start saying, oops, Nikos is here to trick me. Nikos is fantastic, says so nice things, but actually he's a player. The worse you do for your persuasion. Persuasion is ethical because of what I'm talking about. Persuasion is unethical in the transactional view. The manipulative, stupid unconscious, subconscious, for me, the clever conscious. That's the unethical persuasion. But if you see persuasion of how I'm explaining it now, is absolutely transparent and very ethical. Okay, discussion on ethics, we can have it. So this is how it works. So the brain receives from your perceptual organs, sight, smell, audio, receives around 10 to 11 million bits of information per second. This is how much enter the brain. And your brain has an external information system, it has an internal information system. You know, it also needs to know what happens outside the world. It needs to know if I feel pain or hunger. So it has internal information system, nervous system, external information system, the perceptual organs, okay, your senses. And it receives through the senses around 10 to 11 million bits of information. Out of this, how much appears in what you call consciousness? Out of 11 million. What is the bandwidth of your conscious eye? 50 to 60, not 1,000, just 50 to 60, with an absolute ceiling of 120. So out of 11 million bits of information that the brain receives, one of the subsystems of the brain, and I'm very happy to call it subsystem, is consciousness. Okay, and this, the bandwidth of consciousness is 50 to 60 bits, and you think this is where the magic happens, in the 50 to 60 bits. And if you measure the total brain activity, the latest number is 99.4% of brain activity is only the unconscious, and only 0.6 is in conscious. So, who's the master and who's the slave? Regardless of the illusion, and we call this the self-illusion. There is a name in psychology about the fact that you think that there is a self which is conscious and takes the decisions. All this is actually an illusion. Okay, and we can discuss. There is the best discussion in science today is why do we have this illusion? Why are we not just zombies? Why do we need to be aware? There are fantastic theories, different discussions, different seminars. So this is how it works. Is stimuli in the form of vision, audio come to your brain, and what you see as reality, what we call as the conscious mind, that I was very generous of how big is the circle here. The circle should be tiny, tiny, tiny. There is what you see is not a direct feed from reality. That's actually biologically impossible. Information comes in, first it goes to something that's called the thalamus, it's a part of the deeper brain. The thalamus will say, is this urgent or not urgent? Urgent, let me send it to amygdala, what many call the amygdala hack, and then create the running that we said. It's not urgent. Okay, let's follow the normal route. From amygdala, from thalamus, we'll go back, let's say visual information, to your visual cortex, the occipital lobe, back here in what is called V1, visual perceptual 1. Then we'll analyze the data. Then we will go to visual 2, which is the second level of visual analysis. Then visual 3, conscious comes in V4. So already your brain analyzed, filtered, cut out, and contrasted, so everything that you want, combined with previous knowledge, and then at some moment you say, wow, this is what's happening. You are late in the game. You're very late. Okay, so the fact that we live our lives like there is a camera, and the camera feeds directly the image in our mind, that's an illusion. That's not real. Okay, you, me, everybody receives information which is secondhand, it's delayed, it's cut, it's filtered, it's changed, it's categorized, and then out of 11 million bits, we get our should 50 to believe that we live our lives. So you see why I got fascinated about the brain. And now I'm angry that we don't know these things, that science knows these things, and we continue living our lives like before. So what is our goal in persuasion? Our goal in persuasion is, is to create a positive filter in this unconscious, in the intelligence of the adaptive unconscious, to create a filter where when you see Nikos, me, this filter, because not of manipulation, because if I manipulated you, the brain understood it sooner or later, okay? This filter must say, the moment you see me, not consciously, should say, wow, Nikos is here. How fantastic. It doesn't mean that you agree with everything I say, but you're already positive towards me. That's the role of persuasion. Persuasion is the science. It used to be the art, now it's more the science of interacting with somebody's brain. And as I said, brain has many systems, one of which is consciousness. So one of the main systems of the brain is consciousness. Okay. So you have to interact with all these systems in order to make sure that the brain understood through trial and error that Nikos is somebody that brings good news. So Nikos is somebody that's here to support. Nikos is somebody that I can trust. Nikos is somebody that I might disagree, I might even fight, but he's my brother because he's here to help. That's persuasion. That's your goal. Your goal is not to come and trick me or present some numbers in a specific way, because that's bad persuasion. This is disaster. Okay. And when I talk about branding, I'm not talking about traditional branding. First of all, we are all brand managers of our own brand. Each one of you, especially if you're a freelancer, the brand manager. It might not say it in your business card, but you are actually a brand manager. You manage your brand. Call it reputation, call it my name, my face. We used to say losing face. Okay. Call it whatever you want. You are the brand manager of your own brand. So you need to make sure that when somebody interacts with you, the impression, the experience, the conclusion, the evidence, the tangible evidence is that this person is somebody I can trust, I can relate, I can expect something. That's persuasion. Do you see now the huge difference between transaction-oriented persuasion and relation-oriented persuasion? It's very different. It's a completely different mindset of how you see human beings and how you try to interact with them. So our goal is to create this positive filter because this is how the brain works. The brain works with categorizations, filters, and all these analytics that happen in the unconscious much faster and much sooner and much more and richer than what we can have. And to show you some branding examples, I will show you just these three. And they're not even new, so many of you might have heard it. So, and I do this in some seminars. If we were face to face, I would do something like that, not with cereals, but with another food product. So if I have a group of people and I give to half of them one bowl of cereals and the other half of them the other bowl of cereals, and I tell them, try, and they say, I like this, they say, or I like that. And usually people say 50-50, you have two bowls of cereals. You try to say, okay, I like 50% cereal, I like this 50%, it is the same cereals anyway, exactly the same. But usually people choose anyhow. But you get around 50-50, which is kind of random because exactly it's the same cereals. But if I put in one of them Kellogg's, all of a sudden the people that were trying from the no-name and then from the Kellogg's, they say the Kellogg's is 60% much better than the other. It's the same cereals. Same cereals inside. It's the same. So what do you think? The taste buds, sorry for my tongue, but the taste buds, they work different. No, they receive the exact chemical signal from both. But when this goes to the adaptive unconscious, it's decoded different. Also, if I took two groups of people, one group of people saw one TV set and the brand was Hitachi, and the other saw exactly the same TV set, but the brand was, I don't know, General Electric. The one that saw Hitachi would say, oh, this costs, I think, $175, the other say $100. It's the same TV, exactly the same TV. And just the name of the brand was filtered as more higher quality, so it has to be more expensive. And the third one, which is the most scary, especially if you have kids, 63 kids, 3 to 5 years, they tried food wrapped in McDonald's or in no name, and they said, all of them, that the McDonald's food tastes the same. It was the same food. And it was not only burger, it was also fruits. And these are the examples that many unfortunately misguided wannabe psychologists would say, look, Nikos, they're stupid unconscious. Have you seen Borat? You've seen Borat? There's a scene in the extra scenes, which is online, you can watch it, where Borat goes to a supermarket and there's a poor assistant from probably the supermarket manager says, there's this documentary from another country, go help them, they want to see how America is. And there's a poor, I felt sorry for the guy, this assistant, because Borat went to the cheese section and he goes package by package and he's asking, what is this? And the guy says, cheese. And this is cheese there. And what is this? It lasts 5 minutes, you want to kill it. But this is a brain without unconscious, because the unconscious saves you from so much time in life because of its ability to crunch all this data below, under the hood. So you can actually think about other things, because imagine you have 50 to 60 bits of information per second as a bandwidth. Imagine if you had to, every time you go to the supermarket, to check all the brands to see which one is the best. No, what do? Shortcuts. How are these shortcuts done? By trial and error. And indeed, you might make a mistake. The unconscious might make a mistake like here. But if you try second, third, fourth time to treat the unconscious, then it reacts. Okay, for example, in branding, we say build a strong brand, build a trust, because if you do a mistake, the unconscious will forgive you, because the unconscious took time and effort to build this trust. It cannot just overnight, it's a cost benefit analysis. It cannot overnight say, okay, now I don't trust this, I will go to another, because there's a lot of work to be done to develop trust with somebody else. You know it from your personal relationship. You have somebody that, a colleague, a friend, your spouse, that you love and care. If they do a mistake, it's not like one mistake, bye-bye, it's over. Sociologists calls it turning a blind eye. So it's very important that we turn a blind eye when somebody we care very much they do a mistake. Because if we sever every relationship with the first mistake, there would not be any relationships around, not in work, not in personal life, nothing. So the brain learns through trial and error, through fire, sweat, and tears, to trust. And it doesn't give up easily to what it trusts because it built it through a lot of effort. So for me, what you see there is the intelligence of the unconscious that through your whole life, it builds this learning through experience and is sharing this learning. And of course, this learning can lead you, make a mistake. But the brain learns from the mistake, and this is why we're here as a species. If the unconscious was not changing, we would not be here as a species. Okay, but this is the goal. The goal is as a brand name, as a person. Okay, to create this strong brand on the mind of somebody that even when you have to do wrong sometimes, because accidentally you did something wrong, you will be forgiven. Your brand strength is shown when you do something wrong. There you will see how the brain really learned to trust you, because if it doesn't trust you, it will change you overnight, and you have actually not a brand built. But be careful, because if you do mistakes 1 to 3 times, you are out. Okay, depends, even less. So that's our goal in persuasion, to build this filter which is favorable to us. And because the unconscious is intelligent, we have to build it over time with provable, tangible actions and rewards. Okay, so the first thing that you should not do is listen to people. And as a marketeer, both in practice and in education, I always hear myself saying this and hating myself at the same time. Because in marketing, the first thing that we teach to people or we learn is that you have to ask your customers. And asking people what they want is the worst thing you can do, because we are very confused. And even when we are not confused, this is worse. When we are absolutely confident in what we want, this is even worse. Okay, and I will show you some examples. So I'm doing this focus group series in the whole country in Serbia a few years ago for a bank, and the bank wants to issue a new credit card to recruit new clients. So this new credit card offer was for what we call customer acquisition, not to offer it to already existing clients for cross-sell, but bringing in new clients. So in the focus groups, there are customers from other banks and heavy credit card users. So the one thing, the bank was confident that they developed an interest rate level which was the best in the market. So what do? We go to focus groups, and traditionally you ask people, okay, as an adult one, I don't want to trick anybody. Can you please tell me, if I'm to give you some info of the new credit card, which I believe is the best, I think you can win through this credit card. What information do you want me to share for you to notice? So I don't waste my time, it doesn't mean that you will get the card at the end, but at least to consider it. What kind of info would you like to see to even get into the process of maybe this card is for me? Because I believe this is the best card for you, okay? And most of the people said, as you would say, probably interest rates. So I want to see how much you charge. Grace period, penalties, the small letters on the contract. It's finance, it's banking, it's money. It has to be rational, it has to be logical, it has to be numerical. Great. What is? Let me show you. So this is the answer we got. And then we asked them, what is the interest rate in the card you are using? I have no idea. Things are changing fast, I don't keep track, I don't have time, blah, blah, blah. I trust. So all of a sudden it went from a very rational, numerical, financial, we all became accountants. I want to know to what? You know what was the percentage of people that knew their credit card interest rate? Yes, it was a little bit less than 2%, 1.5%. So what do you do then? I listened to you. I kept the first thing. I absolutely listened to you. And I made a poster, a leaflet, an ad with a huge interest rate. Interest rate as big as my bald head, And then how did your brain decode it? How did your brain categorize this info? Because if you don't know your interest rate, Two things your brain can do. One, reject it, because the brain doesn't have a benchmark to compare it. So, you drive down the street, you drive down the road, you maybe see the billboard, the brain doesn't even care because there's no background. Or, and it is even worse, you have an interest rate number, what we call anchor pricing, from somewhere. Could be an ad you saw 2 years ago. Could be an interest rate that your friend told you. Could be the interest rate that you signed 10 years ago. But that's the risk. If I, as a bank, develop an interest rate that I think is the best, you told me that you want to know the interest rate, and I put it on top of my campaign. And then because your brain, although you told me, your brain could not analyze it and compare it with something that makes sense, apart from the 1.5% of people that do that interest. So what we did is, of course, as we do always, you don't have one message. We have what we call message architecture. You're an architect. We have message architecture, you have main message, you have supporting messages, you have reasons to believe. So the main message was actually about trust, because this was around the time where the big financial crisis in the world happened. So 2009, 2010, big financial crisis. So we portrayed trust first, and then the interest rate was secondary message. It was one of the most successful campaigns. If I ask you, I would have an interest rate like this, and it would be no good. There was many of these studies, I'm sure you've heard them, I will go very fast. You ask people, you want less choice or more choice? Everybody said, majority of people say, I want more choice, especially professionals. If you buy for your business, you say, I always want more choice, because I want more choice for my clients. And so they do this study, do you want more or less choice of marmalade flavor? Everybody says, I want more choice. And then if you go to the fair, there is a fair, food fair, they set up two stands, one stand with very few flavors, one stand with many flavors. Imagine what happened. So one was with 24 flavors, the other with 6 flavors. Only 3% of the people bought of the 24 flavors, 30% bought from the 6 flavors. At the end of the day, the 6 flavors killed it in sales versus the 24 flavors. What did people say? I want more flavors. What did they do? They bought from the one with less flavors. We are a mess. I'm telling you, we are a mess. The consciousness is a mess. The more you trust your gut, especially in some situations, not always, but there's a very nice decision-making trick of how to trust your unconscious, the best. And there is my favorite case study is from 1985, one of the most famous case studies in business schools. Coca-Cola decides in 1985 to take away the old Coke. They introduced new Coke. They wanted to battle Pepsi. Pepsi was gaining ground in younger generations. It was sweeter, it was more dynamic. Coca-Cola cannot allow Pepsi to get you in a young generation, because if you buy early, life cycle. So I need to recruit you as in a younger age. They do immense marketing research, asking people, you like this, you like this, you like this. They found the recipe which killed both the old Coke and the Pepsi. They introduce it, and you see on the picture on the left, demonstrations. I actually remember 1985, I was 10 years old. I remember on Greek news on TV, they showed in the summer the demonstrations. I remember myself looking at the demonstration. 2 people demonstrated for Coca-Cola, and I found it very, very strange. And they did demonstrations. McDonald's threatened to start selling Pepsi instead of Coke if they don't reintroduce. It was a mess. And it was very interesting because they did research in 200,000 people. 200,000 people were asked, do you like this more or this more? And it failed. Why? Because as a neuro study showed in 2004, that if you drink something while you're in an fMRI scan machine, I put in a machine, we scan your brain, if you just drink, then one main part of the brain comes to be in control, and you see it there on the left side, which is the VNP-FC. Okay, it is a part of the brain that regulates reward. So if you just drink and you don't know what you're drinking, it's just all about the sensual pleasure. But when I drink the same drink, and at the same time I see the logo, you see the 3 pictures on the right, so much more voices in your brain wake up. The plurality of centers of the brain that all of a sudden wake up to have a sync on on your behavior and decision making is very different. So only the moment, the fact that you could drink Coke without knowing you could drink Coke, or you drink Coke and you see Coke as a logo, makes a big difference in the brain. You will see on the right side that there were parts about emotions, about self-identity, about social connectivity, unbelievable, which also tells you that the dualism, conscious versus unconscious, is wrong. Don't think about it. It's consciousness, as I said, a sub-part. There are 36 and 42, depends who you ask. So you see that the brain is we call it a competitive jungle. Many systems with different agendas and different priorities come to play to have more saying in what the body will do at the end. So if you only give me to drink something, pleasure center says, but if I see, then so many different parts come to say, hey, but what about social connectivity? What about emotions? What about self-identity? And at the end of the day, based on who shouts and which part shouts and how strong, in the end, this collective decision is being taken by your brain. Okay, so this was a crash course of how the brain works. But the point is that it was the president of Coca-Cola that said, after all the money and effort we put in marketing research, we could not reveal the depth of emotional connectivity with the brain. And this is the key of don't ask people. If you ask people, you ask one of the 36 systems. Okay, consciousness. And it's not even the main one or the one in control. And whatever they will tell you, I want interest rates, I want more marmalades, I want this, yes, it tastes fantastic, I will buy it. But when it comes to realize, failure, failure, and failure. So if you don't listen to people, the next logical step is to kill common sense communications. Because when you listen to people, you base your decisions in common sense and you create common sense communications. The brain does not work under common sense rules. It has its own crazy rules. Crazy survival for million years of evolution. You think now the brain is based on common sense? Absolutely not. I'll give you a couple of examples. The first is a petrified forest in the US, where it doesn't happen only in the Balkans. People tend to steal parts of the petrified forest as souvenirs. So the management of the petrified forests invited communication strategists, scientists, and that please create a message that will make people stop. They created two messages. The first message said, hey, don't be one of the hundreds, thousands that steal. Don't be one of them, because at the end we will not have petrified forest. The second message was a little bit more personal. I said, you don't steal. Okay. Which of the two messages worked best? Now, they tried this in a corridor where 3% of people were stealing. So out of 100 people that were walking in that corridor, 3 were picking up parts of the petrified forest. So which message worked best? What do you think? Okay. Message number 2 decreased stealing from 3% to 1.67. It worked very well. Message number 1 had a stronger impact, even stronger, but opposite. From 3%, the percentage of people stealing went to 8%. There is no logic in this. Now, your conscious mind, because this is how it works, I'm sure it's, bringing thousands of answers why this is possible. But this is problematic, because I'm sure that when I showed you these options, nobody of you said, number 1 will work well, but number 2 will make more people steal. Nobody of you had this idea. Maybe one, okay, a very small percentage, I doubt it, but let's always be open. And that's the problem. The problem in understanding neuroscience, the beauty of understanding neuroscience is not you to do best. It's not for you to do worse. Because you might be using your conscious mind to talk with common sense, believing that, okay, maybe one message will work well, maybe one message will not work very well. But you might actually saying to the unconscious of your audience to do the opposite. You might be saying with common sense, don't steal, but the way you say it might be motivating one of these many voices of the brain to actually steal more. It makes absolutely no sense. But this is how the brain works. So it's not about only finding the best message. You might today saying something to your client, sending an email, an invoice, a solution, a comment that might say, hey, okay, it didn't work, the comment, but they might, even they might say, I understood it logically, but the part of the brain that wake up and motivate more the behavior might be the one that it is against what you want. And I said, don't try to explain this like common sense. It's not common sense. It's how the brain works. I'll give you another example. And then I will show you a model of how to improve communications, and we'll finish there. So I don't know if you are smoking. Are there any smokers anymore? Okay. I was never a smoker. So you know this message, smoking kills. There is no mentally, I don't want to say healthy because mentally healthy explanation, description is politically correct. We call it neurotypical. Okay. So no neurotypical person today would read the smoking kills, and the smoker would read the message smoking kills and will misunderstand. So it's not about misunderstanding. Not misunderstanding. It's not about misunderstanding. Is not the most difficult or the biggest challenge of communication. My TED speech was about this. We can say it. It's not about misunderstanding. My mind, conscious mind, and your conscious mind might be fully aligned, fully understood, fully on the same page, and still have a big problem with communication. So look at this smoking kills. Smoking kills is as clear as message as it can be. There is no neurotypical person in the world that will read smoking kills and will misunderstand. Will not understand what is the intention, what is the message, what is the behavioral consequence that the campaign is about. Is there anybody? But when you put smokers in an fMRI scan and you measure their brain activity while you show them these messages, you know which part wakes up and is in control. Not the part that shows disapproval or critical against it, or the one that will say, go far away and will withdraw. The opposite. The part of the brain that lights up is what we call nucleus accumbens, is where a lot of dopamine lives. It's your craving and pleasure center. It's the center that makes you move forward because you crave something. Okay, and that's the part that wakes up. So consciously, you say yes, you ask me not to smoke. And unconsciously, the part of the unconscious, because we said many voices, there's no one voice unconscious and one voice, there is a mess. The voice of the unconscious that actually wins is the craving spot. So actually, this is a marketing tool. As Lindstrom, Martin Lindstrom, that did this study, he came even to Belgrade, I think, a few years ago, actually found. So you see, you might be saying something else with words, but the brain understands something different. Why in this case? Because in this case, we have become Pavlov's dogs. And if you remember Pavlov, what he did is he took his dogs. I'm not sure even if it was his dog. He took the dogs in his laboratory, and he showed to the dogs food. And when the dog was seeing the food, what is the natural response of the body? Is for the dog to salivate, because salivation, when there's saliva, you prepare your system to eat, so you can swallow better. So the normal reaction is you salivate. But some time after, the moment that he was introducing the food to the dogs, he was also buzzing a buzzer. By the way, many people say it was a bell, but most probably it was a buzzer. So in the moment that the food was appearing, the sound was also there. After some trials, there was no food, it was only the buzzer. The dog was coming to the room. What happened? Salivation. So Pavlov showed that he could transfer a reaction of a bodily reaction from the actual stimulus to a conditioned one. So this is why it's called conditioning. You condition the reaction, you manipulate the reaction from the original source to another source. And this is what is happening with smoking kills. What is smoking kills? Look at it. Smoking kills is the new package. For the brain of the smoker, smoking kills is, this is my next cigarette. If you walk down the street and all of a sudden the brain with the 11 million bits of perceptual information accidentally and very fast sees smoking kills, immediately nucleus accumbens can say, they sell cigarettes there. Smoking kills is the package. It replaced, like the Pavlov's dog, it replaced the food to the stimulus. So to go towards the end of the speech, so what the hell is happening, and I only chose a handful of examples, there are many. Okay, so what the hell is happening? If you ask people, you ask their conscious part, which is the 50-60 bit of information, you get completely different story. If you develop communications based on misunderstanding or avoiding misunderstanding common sense, you say a different thing to consciousness, different thing to the 40 unconscious systems, and you can mess it up completely. Okay, so, but what can I do? We were doing it the wrong way. What is the right way? And I have whole lectures on this, why it was the wrong way, but not today. What was the problem with behavioral psychology and cognitive psychology? Before now, we are in actual neuroscience territory. But let me share with you one of my favorite models of modern persuasion and creating this connection with somebody's unconscious. So brain-to-brain synchronicity, not conscious-to-conscious synchronicity. This is prone to mistakes. Deeper brain synchronicity. And the model that I want to share with you, and maybe some of you have heard it in various reincarnations of this, it's called warmth and competence. It is a model that I really love. I put in practice in my personal life, in my professional life. It's a very robust model that shows how the brain takes decisions. Okay, and this model is based on research. You can find it on a few books. Compelling People is a fantastic book. Okay, it's also called Warmth and Strength. So in that book, Compelling People, in the red one, they call it Warmth and Strength. And they say warmth versus strength, warmth with strength, etc. And the Charisma Myth, a fantastic book by Olivia Fox-Cabana, is also introducing a third dimension, which is presence. And a book that discusses this model, but in branding and marketing territory, is the human brand, which I also in my book, I discuss it in both, one in neuroscience for leaders, for leadership, in advanced marketing management for marketing. So what is this model saying? Let me go back. Now, I come out of my cave as a cave person. Okay. Now, obviously, I'm not a caveman still, but if you ask my mother-in-law, probably I'm still a caveman. It's fantastic. Okay. Now, I come out of my cave, and I see somebody I haven't seen before. Personally, it's not in my time. It's a life and or death decision. What am I going to do? Because if I think that this person is here to support me, I might go to embrace him, he might stroke me down and okay. Or if he's indeed here to help me and I'm afraid that I miss the opportunity because to collaborate with this person. So it's a life or death decision. What am I going to do? Okay. So the brain has developed two criteria by which within a second, below actually a second, because the brain, imagine that one of the electroencephalograms we have to measure my neuromarketing clients measures the brain 500 times per second, and the brain works 1,000 times per second. Okay, and per connection, if you add the connection, it is hundreds of thousands of times, not million per second. Okay, so this is why I'm saying that the beginning, when we talk about fear and running and time frame, the timeline of the brain is very different than the timeline of my consciousness. Okay? So the brain below 0.5 seconds, so below 500 milliseconds, will first has to decide if the person I see in front of me is here to do me harm or to do me good. And this is worth. So the first of these two criteria, the fastest, and as you will see, the most important, is if this is person here, the person in front of me, does he or she have my well-being as their priority, or they have harm, or their well-being as their priority, not mine. So let's say that the person I see in front of me, my brain decides that this person is good for me. Okay, 0.5 seconds. Then the brain will going to decide, is this person competent? Now, if the person in front of me is warm, means that my brain decoded how they stand, how they look, how they're dressed, do they have some cultural items that are also my tribe has, the tone of voice, the micro frequencies of the vocal cords that shows aggression. Of course, a lot is on facial decoding, we call it empathic gaze, how the way that you scan a face can reveal if you understood what their intention and their emotions are about. So we'll do the same work. Okay, if the person is here to help me, if we say it is a he in my tribe, and I see somebody say, okay, but he's also strong, he's very competent, then I might follow him to the fight. Am I taking with me in a fight? Am I taking him with me in hunting? But if he is weak, so the competence are very low, then he can be my very good friend, but I will not engage with him in serious activities like war or hunting or anything else, because he might put mine and the other people's lives at danger. Now, imagine if my brain in 0.5 seconds decided that this person is against me, came here actually to harm me. How this person stands, maybe he has blood, he has a weapon, you decode as aggression. Then decoding competence is very important. If I also decode him as high competence, more than mine, I better run. Fight or flight, flight. Because he's bigger, he has a bigger weapon, he will kill me. If he's here against me, but I decode him as lower competence, then fight. So I engage into sort him out. So you see how important life of the decisions, and this is why this is hardwired in our brain. So what I want to show you is this is what happens. Actually, every time that you appear in front of somebody, not personally, could be email, could be presentation, could be a message, it doesn't matter. Immediately, the adaptive unconscious of that person will put you on this matrix. Where are you? Okay, so where is better for persuasion? If you have high warmth, and by the way, this model, it's called the social perception model or social cognition model, explains 80% of people's behavior in more than 37 countries. So it's a very robust model we have. Okay. So look, high competence, high warmth, low competence, sympathy the difference. You're fantastic, but stay aside. High competence, high warmth, the best, admiration and attraction. This is persuasion. This is your goal. You have to be decoded. Your personal brand has to occupy that space. Low warmth, low competence, there's no other. Low warmth and high competence depends if it is low warmth or if it is negative warmth. So I'm aggressive. Because envy and grudge cooperation is when I collaborate with you, but not with my full heart. So I'm loyal maybe what you do because you're fantastic, but I'm not there. So the moment that I will see somebody that can do it maybe better or different than you, I will change. So you have loyalty, but it is what we call habitual loyalty, not emotional loyalty. I will not tattoo your name on my arm. So this is, and if you see these many brands in the market, this is the research that has happened. And this thing is not written in stone, it's not rigid. Johnson & Johnson occupied this quadrant because of the reaction to a contaminated cream. You remember when I told you that the brain is adaptive and very intelligent? It learns. And BP went to this discussed position of how they responded, how badly they responded to, what's it called, Deep Horizon or Blue Horizon, Deep Horizon, I think, this oil spill, the disaster that they had in the Mexican Gulf. They tried to hide it. They knew it in advance. They didn't prepare. So both they showed that they didn't care and they were not able to solve the crisis. So this is all a living, breathing thing on the brains of people. So you need to actually occupy, and you know what I'm trying to, like I'm here today, to go around the world and convince people that you first think about warmth. You second think about. But unfortunately, companies, universities, trainings, technology is all about competence. It's not all 90% is about competence. We focus so much on competence, and it's great. But the brain decodes competence second. The latent time and even with less strength. So your job as a persuasive, force is to use warmth as first and foremost, and then competence. Of course, don't get me wrong. Competence, you have to be the best in the world. I'm not trying to dilute, to decrease the importance of competence. I'm just stating the fact that competence comes second. Okay. And you will see that if you try to even explain the impact on customer behavior, you will see that purchase intention, loyalty, and this comes from the extensive research from the book, The Human Brain, The Human Brand, I'm sorry. You will see that actually warmth not only comes first, is strong. And even if you see the details on the relation between familiarity, how much I know you, demographics, how much what you offer is tailor-made for my persona, which is very famous these days. And if you see what the model explains from what and competence, they're not even close of how much of loyalty, for example, is explained by these variables. Look, and this is actually a very strong statement for trained marketeers, because we are always trained as marketeers to think about segmentation, about targeting, about laser focusing on one-to-one marketing. But this proves that all this is good, but it adds very little. But it's tangible, it's easy to measure. And we like things that are tangible and easy to measure. Something that is tangible and easy to measure, we can manage it. But the magic is not there. The magic is somewhere else. The magic is to work. So what you need to do to finish also, because I think we are a little bit abusing your time, is that, and I prepared 100 more slides, but it doesn't matter. This is where we can finish today, is that persuasion is about developing this filter in the adaptive unconscious of your audience, customers, friends, family, that automatically they decode you as positive. And positive has to be warmth. And warmth has to be with how everything you are. Now, if you see somebody, of course, the way you are dressed, the way that you move, the way that you focus, the way that you talk, everything what you, but even on a digital environment, the way that you phrase your emails, how fast you respond, what is the content of your response, the extra mile personally that you go to solve a problem when your clients need it the most. All these things show warmth, and warmth is winning the unconscious brain of your customer. If you were with me today in a real life environment, now we would go to breakout rooms for you to develop different ways to become more warm. And then we will come back together and we will present this and we'll discuss it. But let's leave this when we all meet together. My final thesis is the following. Of course, I could mention many phrases, words, images that have been proven in a way or another to win a conversation. But winning a conversation is winning the battle. You might win the battle and lose the war. The war is not won by winning an argument or proving a point at the moment. The war is won by developing deep connections and bonding, creating a relationship which it's not common sense, it's not informational, it's not few numbers will explain, but it is the deep understanding of the unconscious of your audience that you are there for them. And this is not just a statement. We're not con artists. It's not here for me to say, in a specific argument that I'm here for you, but when you are really needed, you are nowhere to be found. Then your warmth will go to the low or even negative level, and you remember the emotions that exist in this part of the statement. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope you found it interesting. I thought this was an extended teaser to go deeper inside the topic, but if you have to remember one thing, just after any interaction with your clients, think, was I warm? Was I warm? And in what way I was warm, and how can I be warmer? That's it. Thank you so much.
Nico, thanks again. Hope to see you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.